Now, you know what this feels like? A casino finally checking the security cameras after the money's already gone. That's the energy around Obama right now.
It's sad that Obama turned into a piece of shit, but he's just a fucking hustler like everybody else. He's not done anything good in or out of office except for agitate black people and to pretend to be some sort of statesman. It's sad that.
See, what makes this clip hit isn't even the insult, right? It's the exhaustion behind it. A lot of Americans are tired of politicians transforming into philosophers after they leave office. Obama talks now like he's floating above Earth, narrating humanity's mistakes from space. Meanwhile, people online are like, brother, you were here. That's the disconnect. And Democrats keep making it worse because they still approach criticism like the public has amnesia. That old formula used to work, I'm telling you, say threat to democracy, throw dramatic music behind it. You let MSNBS, activate, and all MSNBS, CNN, and all these other left-wing news media platforms activate like Power Rangers. But people aren't consuming politics the same anymore. Now, folks, clip these old interviews, compare the timelines, repeat and repost the contradictions that y'all, said in 4K, and cook you in the comments before dinner. Look, the internet changed. The internet game has changed completely, is all I'm saying. And Obama walking into a conversation about DOJ weaponization in this political climate, after what we know about him? And my guy walked into a barbecue wearing vegan only on his shirt. Yeah, man. That means you were asking for trouble immediately.
So this is a bit rich, isn't it? Watch.
The White House shouldn't be able to direct the Attorney General to go around prosecuting whoever the president wants to prosecute.
Right, because technically it's under the executive branch.
Technically,
the norm is that it's independent.
The idea is that the Attorney General is the people's lawyer. It's not the president's consigliere.
Right, even when it's Bobby Kennedy.
It's Bobby Kennedy. And so two of the core principles of a democracy, we can survive a lot. Bad policy, funky elections. There's a bunch of stuff that, we can overcome. We can't overcome the politicization of the criminal justice system, the awesome power of the state. You can't have a situation in which whoever's in charge of the government starts using that to go after their political enemies or reward their friends, right? So another power, maybe I'd say.
So let me get this straight. Barack Obama is warning America that presidents should never use government agencies to target political opponents. Seriously? Because that is exactly what happened to Donald Trump because of Obama. And it started even before Trump took office, before the inauguration, before a single policy, before a single executive order. Obama's outgoing administration launched one of the most disgraceful political operations in modern American history. Obama, Clinton, Biden, Brennan, Comey, Clapper, they all pushed the Russian collusion narrative knowing it was false. Not mistaken, not bad intelligence, false. The Steele dossier was garbage. The allegations were garbage, and they used it anyway. Why? Because they couldn't accept losing in 2016. So they sandbagged an incoming president with investigations, leaks, surveillance, intelligence briefings, impeachments, and nonstop media hysteria designed to cripple Trump before he even got started. That's not democracy. That's a coordinated political attack from inside the government. Borderline coup behavior. And look at the damage and division it caused. The entire country was dragged through years of manufactured chaos over something Obama's people created, orchestrated, and pushed while knowing it was all built on lies. The FBI lost credibility, the DOJ lost credibility, the intelligence agencies lost credibility. And that's why this Obama clip is so outrageous. The man lecturing America about weaponizing government helped oversee the biggest weaponization scandal of our lifetime. Holding people accountable for that is not lawfare, it's justice. And frankly, more Americans need to start saying it out loud, because if Republicans had done this to a Democrat president, the media would have called it an attempted coup every single day for the last decade. Obama doesn't get to rewrite history here. The Russian collusion hoax poisoned the country on purpose, and people, including Obama, should be held accountable.
Exactly.
Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Here, Obama is telling Colbert, as y'all corrected me yesterday, not Colbert, Colbert, that presidents should never direct the attorney general to target political opponents. Now, on paper, That sounds reasonable, to most Americans. But the problem is, millions of, people immediately connect that statement to Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI investigation, and the Trump campaign associates back in 2016. The investigation eventually became part of, the broader Russia collusion narrative that dominated politics for years. And, people have argued for a long time that federal agencies, intelligence officials, and parts of the media coordinated politically against Trump from the very beginning. That's why this clip backfired online. Because, people heard Obama describing behavior they believed already happened to Trump. And the media's role in all this matters too. For years, major outlets treated the Russia story like settled facts. Every new leak became breaking news. Every investigation was framed as, politically catastrophic for Trump. Then years after coverage, Mueller did not establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. That left millions of Americans feeling like they had been dragged through years of political hysteria. Reasonably so. So now when Obama talks about protecting institutions, a lot of people here protect the same institutions that spent years targeting Trump. Okay. And then Todd responds directly to that argument.
In a recent interview, former President Barack Obama said, and I quote, "The White House shouldn't be able to direct the Attorney General to go around prosecuting whoever the president wants to prosecute." You're the Attorney General. What is your response?
Well, coincidentally, I happen to have, I think, a copy of our Constitution. So if we want, we can read our Constitution together. Article 2 says the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. It does not say that the Attorney General stands off to the side. So I'm an acting Attorney General. The Attorney General is a member of the cabinet of the President of the United States. The Constitution gives the President power. So I question people in this country that suggest that President Trump, as the chief executive of the United States, does not have the authority or the right or shouldn't be leading this country in all areas, including what we need to be doing to get rid of crime in this country. And so I'm not familiar with the comments you just talked about, but to the extent that President Trump calls me and says that he thinks that we have a problem in this country, whether it's the scourge of drugs, illegal immigration, every American wants him to do that, and he should.
But the accusation here from the former president is that your department is now charging political adversaries of the president or perceived political adversaries of the president on his behalf to settle scores, essentially.
There's something extraordinarily rich about a Democrat suggesting that this administration is charging our political adversaries. I mean, first of all, we're not. Second of all, how about we think about what happened the past 4 years? It wasn't just President Trump that got indicted repeatedly in multiple district courts, in multiple jurisdictions, but it was also his entire administration, what was called into the grand jury. Members of his Secret Service detail had to testify in the grand jury.
Whoa.
So I welcome criticism. Let's go. But let's, if you're sitting in a glass house, you ought not throw stones.
I know that's right. Now, Todd's response matters because he approaches this from a constitutional angle instead of an emotional one. His point is basically the executive branch answers to the president under Article 2. Now, critics say that and worry about presidential overreach. Supporters say that and say, exactly. The president runs the executive branch, but the more politically explosive part, comes later after Todd brings up the investigations against Trump and members of the administration. Because that's really what this debate is about now. Whether those investigations represented legitimate law enforcement or politically motivated lawfare. That word, lawfare, become huge in politics as of late. The belief that legal systems are being used strategically to damage political opponents. And Democrats have a difficult messaging problem here because many Americans, they watch Trump get investigated get impeached, indicted, raided, and sued across multiple jurisdictions, the last 8 years, nearly a decade straight. So when Democrats suddenly warn against politicizing justice, people respond. What was all this concern 5 years ago? That's the collusion happening right now in politics. And then this next clip pushes the conversation even further by bringing Tulsi Gabbard and intelligence assessments into it.
A beating from the Trump administration as we speak. Yes, Donald Trump has not forgotten about what the deep state put him through, and he's here for payback. Trump sent a stark warning to Obama yesterday, saying he needs to be brought to justice over his part in the Russian interference hoax during the 2016 election.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold. Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. It's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level.
Obama responded, blasting Trump for attempting to distract from current events. He said, "Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction." Online commentators mocked Obama's response, with this person saying, "Obama is terrified. Lawyer up, bud." But Trump was not deterred. Today, Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, came with receipts in an extensive speech that meticulously laid out evidence for all of her claims.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice.
She then doubled down, exposing the deep state for their compliance in the mammoth cover-up.
There are still people, won't surprise you, within the intelligence community who don't want this information to see the light of day. Some of them may be implicated in the crafting of it. Others are concerned about people being embarrassed. Others are concerned about accountability. We have members of the media who were complicit in this from the very beginning, who were leaked early copies of this, or at least lines from this January 2017 Obama manufactured intelligence assessment. They printed what they were fed. People like Ellen Nakashima from the Washington Post, who, by the way, went on to win a Pulitzer Prize because for years she was so good at lying and not telling the truth to the American people that they gave her an award for it.
And
Yeah, this clip matters because it combines Trump's long-standing ObamaGate accusations with newer conversations around declassified intelligence materials. Now, this isn't necessarily information that we did not know or wasn't privy to previously, but Tulsi Gabbard's role here is important politically because she isn't viewed as just some random online commentator. She's speaking from inside the national security intelligence world. And her argument is essentially this: that members of Obama's national security team helped shape intelligence and narratives around Russian interference in ways, designed to politically damage Trump. Now, obviously, Democrats reject that interpretation completely. But here's the larger issue. Trust in institutions has collapsed. That's the real story underneath all this. A huge percentage of, people no longer trust the FBI, major media outlets, parts of the intelligence community or federal law enforcement agencies. And Russiagate played a massive role in creating that distrust because people believe the country spent years chasing a narrative that was politically driven from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Democrats believe that, investigations were necessary because of Russia's interference efforts in Trump world behavior. So now America basically has two completely different interpretations of the same historical period. And that divide still hasn't healed, which is why even older Obama clips suddenly get pulled back into this conversation.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation.
The United States has been enriched by Muslim Americans.
Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States.
Islam has always been a part of America's story. There is a mosque in every state in our union and over 1,200 mosques within our borders. Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
Well, this
We are no longer
the discussion beyond Russiagate entirely. For many people, Obama represents the beginning of a major cultural and political shift in America. Immigration policy change, religious language change, patriotism debates intensified, identity politics became more central in public life. Supporters saw Obama as modernizing America, even me at the time. Critics saw him as fundamentally reshaping the country away from traditional values. And that's why these old clips keep resurfacing. Because to many people, Obama wasn't just another president. He represented an entire political worldview that they believe became dominant across media, corporations, and government institutions. So when Obama now positions himself as a defender of democratic norms and institutional integrity, we're going to bring up the Russiagate, the DOJ, the surveillance questions, intelligence agencies, and the broader cultural shifts from his presidency. That's why the story still has energy nearly a decade later, right? Yeah. So, you made it to the end of this. I want you to roll it back, because that's exactly what we're about to do. Y'all be safe. Go check with somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life. Peace.